Evening, everybody. This is the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for March the 22nd, 2022. I'm calling the meeting to order, and I'm going to call the roll. We'll start out with Alderman Baggett.
Present.
Alderman Potts.
Present.
Alderman Brown.
Present.
Alderman Berger.
Present.
Alderman Barnhill.
Present.
Alderman Hanson.
Present.
Alderman Peterson.
Present.
And Alderman Blanton. She is here, but I assume, I see her drink, so we'll indicate whether she's here or not in just a minute, and I'm here. So we're going to start out tonight with an invocation. Tonight we're honored to have Darren Clark, who is from the Rolling Hills Church, and he's significant in that he has had a significant influence on the life of the person that's going to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Darren runs a program called Father and Son Bowl, which addresses issue of fatherless children. So thank you for doing that. So it's now my honor to ask him to come up. Darren, please.
Well, thank you for the ability to be here and to be in your presence and to lead you in prayer. And I'm so honored. So if you would just join me, I'd love to pray. Father God, Lord, I just praise you and I thank you so much for this day. I thank you for the rain that you've given us. I thank you for the seasons that you turn. I thank you for your majesty and your holiness and that's just displayed in your creation. Lord, I pray especially for the leaders here, these community leaders and how they serve, Lord, that you will bless them with your wisdom. Your ways are way above our ways. We desperately need your wisdom and your guidance and discernment, especially in these times that we're facing right now where, frankly, the evil is really so present and pressing. But, Lord, you are greater and you are all-powerful and you love these people and you love this community. And, Lord, I just pray that, above all, that your spirit of peace will come upon us to unite us in your love and in your Son, Jesus Christ, who shows us the love that you have for us by dying on the cross for our sins. So, Lord, please do a work in all of our minds and our hearts. May your pure, true, holy, loving light pierce every heart here tonight so that we can see your truth and just in love and unite in that truth. Lord, you're so good, and Lord, and I love you so much, and I just pray again for your blessings on these people and this community and the decisions and discernments that they need to make these decisions that stand before them to represent our community. Lord, may they honor you in all they do. Lord, you are so good, and I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Alderman Potts, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, fellow aldermen, tonight it's my honor to welcome and introduce my son, Carter Potts. Carter is a graduate from Centennial High School and accepted U.S. Representative Dr. Mark Green's appointment to the Air Force Academy. As a cadet, he recently completed 262 days of training to be recognized in the Air Force Wing and received the Air Force Prop and Wings recognition. Additionally, Cadet Potts has received academic honors recognition. To recognize the daily commitment of the 4,000 plus cadets at the Air Force Academy, Cadet Potts will share the Airman's Creed. After he concludes the Airman's Creed, please remain standing and join him in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I am an American airman. I am a warrior. I have answered my nation's call. I am an American airman. My mission is to fly, fight, and win. I am faithful to a proud heritage, a tradition of honor, and a legacy of valor. I am an American airman, guardian of freedom and justice. My nation's sword and shield, its century and avenger. I defend my country with my life. I am an American airman, wingman, leader, warrior. I will never leave an airman behind. I will never falter, and I will not fail. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Awesome.
I don't know about you, but I've got to take a real deep breath. What a great young man and what a great representative for our country. Now's an opportunity for citizens to make comments for items on the agenda. The usual routine is a speaker card that's submitted to me. I have no speaker cards at this time for public comments on items not on the agenda, so we'll continue to move on to communications from the Williamson County Commission. I see no one here. So we'll now go to approval of the minutes for March the 8th, Board of Mayor and Alderman work session, and also the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting of March the 8th, 2022. So I'll entertain a motion. Thank you, Alderman Peterson, and thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Is there any discussion, any additions? Seeing none, let's vote. Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Alderman Hanson?
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Berger?
Yes.
Alderman Brown?
Yes.
Alderman Potts?
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to, are there any special recognitions or miscellaneous reports before I go to a proclamation that I have? If not, I'd like to invite Marquise Goff, got you, I was struggling with it, up to accept this proclamation. This proclamation has to do with Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas the City of Franklin wants to demonstrate our support in ending sexual assault and support the numerous victims who are among us by recognizing April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas every 68 seconds an American is sexually assaulted, affecting individuals of any gender, race, culture, or socioeconomic background. And whereas in addition to the immediate physical and emotional cost, sexual assault may also have associated consequences of post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, depression, homelessness, eating disorders, and suicide. And whereas sexual assault is devastating not only to the survivor, but also for the family and the friends of the victim or survivor, and whereas since no one person, organization, or community can eliminate sexual assault on their own, we must work together to educate our entire population about what can be done to prevent sexual assault, support survivors and their families, as well as support those agencies providing services to survivors. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Ken Moore, Mayor of the City of Franklin, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Okay, go ahead, and I'm going to leave you down here, and then I'll be back up there. So
All
thank
right.
you for being here and raising this to our attention.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, all, and thank you for having me. My name is Marquise Goff. It's like cough with a G, just so you remember. My wife and I are fairly new to Franklin, but we both care deeply about this community and its future. That is why I decided to reach out to Mayor Moore and Alderman Brown about how our city could be more proactive in addressing the plague that is sexual violence. I want to thank the mayor for his eager willingness to issue this proclamation and Alderman Brown for his many kind words of support and encouragement. This proclamation is without a doubt an encouraging start, yet there is so much more that you as elected officials and we as residents can be doing. I know that it is easy to dismiss this issue as non-existent within our community, which frequently causes it to be overlooked, but it is painfully real. The mayor mentioned the 68 seconds that someone somewhere in America is a victim of sexual violence. 68 seconds. By the time I've concluded my comments, several people somewhere in this country will have been victims of sexual violence. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but I want to really let that sink in. Statistically speaking, each person in this room knows a survivor of sexual violence, and you may just not even know it. To my deep sadness, I know several. This is something that does happen every day. We just don't hear about it. This morning, I was looking through Franklin PD's records on cityprotect.com, and in just this past month, there have been 3 reported cases of sexual violence. I'm sorry. One of which was committed against a child, right here in Franklin. That's 3 out of more than 40 such cases since last March. Over the past several years, reporters with the Tennessean, WKRN, Fox 17, WJHL, and Williams from Homepage have all written about high-profile cases of sexual violence here in Franklin. And to be clear, these are only the cases that are reported. The vast majority are not. According to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, only 310 per 1,000 cases of sexual violence are actually reported to police. That means 2/3 of cases go unreported. Now, the mayor told me I only had 2 minutes, so I'm going to end there by strongly urging the city to take action on this issue. We are rapidly growing, and with growth comes opportunity for crime, especially of this nature. Franklin has been very good to my wife and I, and we've met many wonderful people like Alderman Brown, Mayor Moore, Fire Chief Johnson, who I had lunch with today. But if we want to continue to be a truly welcoming community, we also need to be a safe, aware community that is proactive in preventing this kind of crime and supporting those who fall prey to it. I look forward to continuing the conversation on how our city can do just that, and I do have some information packets with me that I'd like to give to the mayor and members of the board if they're willing to accept them. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Marquise. And you can, if you'll just leave those with Angie, and she'll distribute them to the board members. And appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Before we go to the consent agenda, I feel it might be good for us to just take a moment of silence for the people of Ukraine and that violence and war that's going on there. And so if you'll join me in just a moment of silence for the people of Ukraine. And thank you for sharing that moment. The consent agenda, all items in the consent agenda be deemed to be non-controversial and routine in nature by the governing body. They'll be approved as recommended by committee or staff by one motion of the governing body. The items on the consent agenda will not be discussed. We're looking at items number 11 through 21, and I would consider a motion.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Thank you. Who was the second? Alderman Brown seconded. Alderman Baggett made the motion. Any discussion? Ready to vote. Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item number 3. This is a public hearing. This is consideration of ordinance 2022-05, an ordinance to amend the budget of the city of Franklin for FY 2021 to 22. So, Catherine?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. As y'all can probably tell, I am not Michael Walters Young, who normally would be giving this presentation. He is unfortunately out tonight, so y'all have me instead. I'll be presenting tonight ordinance 2022-05, which is an amendment for fiscal year 22 budget. And if you could go, oh, thank you, Angie. This amendment, it goes across 4 funds, but it goes in 3 categories. It's personnel, a debt service correction, and a project funding change. I will go through with y'all each fund just to show what changes are happening. We're going to start with the general fund since that's your biggest fund. We're going to have a position restoration that is a zoning enforcement officer or a planning position in our Building and Neighborhood Services Department. Given the market demand, the extra position is really necessary to keep up with demand. And I say extra position, it is a restoration, so it's a previously authorized yet unbudgeted position. So this has been authorized before, so we're bringing it back. And that's going to be about $41,000. The next is temporary assistance in our finance department. This is particularly with our payroll team. With the onslaught of the COVID-19 pandemic, There has been increasing burden on our payroll team to get our payroll out on time. And so there's really extra hours necessary to help make us more efficient and keep up with our timelines. This is about $10,000, and we're hoping to have a more permanent solution come through in our FY23 budget. Last part in our general fund is the retiree payouts. This is in our police department. We had several retiree payouts come through in our second budget amendment, but this one kind of came along after that one was adopted. We don't typically budget for retiree payouts because they're unpredictable, so we come along through with the amendment process as they come through. So this one is about $40,000. In total for the general fund, that's going to be about $91,000, and it'll be a net zero on the fund because you're going to see a decrease in the same amount in general expenses. Our next fund is the water and wastewater fund. This is also a position restoration. This is a senior water operator position, and that's going to be about $35,000. And similar with our BNS department, it's really to keep up with demand. We really need to restore this position to help with operation control at our water treatment facility. The next is going to be debt service correction in our sanitation fund. To put it simply, we over budgeted in FY22, so we're going to bring that number down to $17,000 to match our actuals. And then finally, we have in our stormwater fund, we want an increase of about $60,000 for our dry branch detention area. There's some repairs that are needed, and so the $60,000 will cover the cost of repairs. So just to sum up the changes, in the general fund, you will see no net change. In the sanitation and environmental services fund, you're going to see an increase of $17,000. In a stormwater fund, you're going to see a decrease of $60,000. In water and wastewater funds, a decrease of $35,000. And with that, that is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
And this is a public hearing. It's an opportunity for people to speak to the budget amendment. I see no speakers coming forward, so I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Is there a second? Alderman Hanson, thank you for the second. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Baggett,
Yes.
Alderman Potts,
Yes.
Alderman Brown,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Hanson,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item number 4. This is a public hearing, consideration of ordinance 2022-01, an ordinance to amend Appendix A, Comprehensive Fees and Penalties, Chapter 17, Refuse and Trash Disposal of the Franklin Municipal Code to increase the fees for collection of garbage and refuse to $65 a ton.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify for the public, this is an adjustment at our transfer station. So these are commercial haulers that come in and utilize the transfer station, and then we haul and dispose of this at landfill. So this is increasing that rate from $55 a ton to $65 a ton. We believe this is reflective in the market and what has happened, the demand there. This is a very convenient option for many of the commercial haulers. And also, by increasing revenue from this source, it does lessen some of the burden on our residential customers. So I feel this is appropriate at this time.
Are there any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman Hanson,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Brown,
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item number 5, and this is consideration of ordinance number 2021-05, an ordinance to rezone 233.66 acres from agricultural district and civic institutional district to planned development 2.02 district for several properties located near the intersection of Hillsborough Road and MacHatcher Memorial Parkway, known as Brownland Farm PUD subdivision, and will establish a public hearing. So please listen up to those folks that are here tonight on this. The public hearing on this issue will be on April the 26th, 2022. So I'd entertain a motion. Alderman
Mayor?
Brown.
I make a motion to deny the request for rezoning.
Appropriate motion. Appropriate second by Alderman Peterson. Open for discussion. Go ahead, Alderman Brown.
So I realize a lot of times getting to that public hearing and getting to that development plan is an appropriate step, but I want to talk tonight, just three points I want to make on why I'm suggesting that we vote, that a vote to rezone this is premature and maybe even most likely unwarranted. So there's a condition of approval that has been placed on this development that, in my opinion, really is not and really should not be a condition of approval. That is the requirement of a bona fide street that is not only accessible by emergency crews, but serves as an evacuation route for 350 households from the island when it floods, which it will flood. This isn't as simple as closing a gate to a trail or a park when the threat of flood is around. These are people's homes, which means we aren't just talking about a gravel road and a gate, but a street that's above flood level for residents on those days where floodwaters cover Hillsborough Road. Without the guarantee of a safety route, no residential development should ever be approved on that property. So while we sometimes suggest a property will be developed at some point, I would argue that perhaps in this case it won't be. This condition of approval is not like finalizing a landscape buffer or confirming a turn radius for a fire truck. This condition is a go, no-go, not only for this development, but frankly for any development to be safely developed on this property, which means that current zoning may actually be the appropriate zoning that's appropriate for development on that property. It's almost as if this idea of having this go, no-go decision in the site plan later, it reminded me of about a decade ago when Congress said, we got to pass the bill to read the bill and to know what's in the bill. To pass zoning on this property and see what sticks later, that's not leading, that's hoping. I don't see a rationale for rezoning to accommodate dense residential development when none may be possible. Second point I'd like to make is that in addition to tenaciously representing the residents of Franklin who do not want this development, I'm also trying to protect our staff. Should this plan ultimately be approved, we'll be asking our staff to certify that all concerns are mitigated. We know already they're uncomfortable with that, and rightfully so. First of all, we're talking about a significant disruption to the floodplain in an area with a long history of flooding and sinkholes. We are using 2004 rainfall data to produce the current models. I'm sure that 20 years ago, experts using data that was 20 years old thought all was good. And now we're lifting houses on Lancaster Drive, and hundreds of homes from Rebel Meadows up to Fieldstone Farms are now in the floodplain. Staff has been clear. The frequency and duration of storm events and the amount of precipitation remain unpredictable factors in these types of decisions. We do know this. We've seen significant rainfall days increased in Franklin over the last 5 years, and the modeling doesn't include that. Perhaps instead of passing these developments, and especially as in regards to Envision Franklin and our flood and stormwater concerns, we should conduct our own rainfall study so that we can have the knowledge and the assurances that current data and current weather patterns in our Harpeth River with increased development into the floodplain and the floodway we make this critical step, in my opinion. My final comment is relative to risk and benefit. I'm going to use Poplar Farms as my example. I joined Alderman Berger in voting to deny that development because of the clear risk to the area that was outlined by her as well as expressed by residents. It was approved ultimately, in large part because while there was risk, there was benefit in the way of infrastructure, Market Street. I would argue that the potential risk here is far greater than that of Clovercroft Road, and there's no benefit to the city. No infrastructure, no roads. We aren't fixing flood issues anywhere else. The residents of Ward 2 and the surrounding county don't benefit from this development, but they get all the risk. Protecting our residents and supporting our staff regarding this development plan with what I believe are fatal flaws is why I'm moving to deny this zoning request tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else? Alderman Peterson.
I have a question to ask on the material that was sent to us about the question, what percentage of acreage of floodplain floodway being disrupted by the cut-in field for just Brownland Farms, Christ Community Church parcels, not including the land at Monticello. It said we have the applicants, okay, sorry. We have the applicants' design team for these, but they had not response. And so the development team response was, our city was not aware that the city staff request for this information. Brownland Farms, 233 acres. How many acres of floodplain are on the property? 196 acres. That is 83% of this is in floodplain. How many acres are above the floodplain? 36 acres, that are 17%. And they go on to say how many acres would be graded and cleaned up, how many would be filled out of the floodplain. I have a question, though, to either staff or someone else. It says, required to compensate at a rate of 1 to 1.50 for floodplain storage. It says existing volume is 1.7 million cubic yards. It says the proposed volume is 1.82. That would be a 7% increase, not a 50% increase, which is required. I'd be happy for anyone to say something about this.
I'll allow Mr. Girth to make a comment.
Thank you, Alderman. Without getting deep into the technical requirements, I believe I can answer this question this way. That if the board finds it appropriate to allow this development, Brownland Farms, to proceed, the applicant does need to mitigate a significant amount of the floodplain. And in preparing that application, the data needs to be prepared by a licensed professional engineer surveyor. And also, our floodplain manager, Shannon McCoy, will concur with that application. And by her endorsing the application that goes to FEMA, she's saying that it will comply, the mitigation, with the city's standards as far as our floodplain management program. And there's two pieces to that. There's what is required by FEMA to be mitigated. It's an engineering exercise, but also, as you know, the city is part of the community rating system. And one of the requirements, as Alderman Peterson highlighted, one, is that the mitigation provides 50% more capacity. And that's, again, an engineering exercise in which when we have that data and it's being submitted to FEMA, we will be able to ensure the accuracy of that, not only with the applicant's professional engineers, but also our staff and working with TEMA folks. I hope that answers the question adequately, because I can't respond to an engineering exercise that we haven't received yet.
Absolutely, but I'm just saying if it's 50% more capacity, and this says 7% there, maybe I'm just mixing up two numbers, but.
Yeah, it's certainly, based on what you said, does not meet that test. But again, I want to be clear that the data required to submit a CLOMAR, conditional letter of revision, or when the work's done, a letter of revision, a LOMAR, that will be a plethora of information that we'll have to go through.
And for the record, I think you're referring to an email that had an attachment that was sent to you today. And
Yes, at 3:13 this afternoon. I'm lucky that
and I'm not sure who that even came from, but I'll give Angie my copy. I'll include it with everything.
Thank
so that it's in the record to what you're referring to.
And what we can do from a staff perspective and work with the applicant to maybe answer that question, just to make sure we've got the same set of data for everybody to look at this, because I don't believe we've seen the email you're referring to. I know we provided some information to the board in response to a question Alderman Brown asked us last week, so we're glad to provide that in the next time this topic is up, to maybe clarify that information for the board and for the included in the the agenda packet for the public as well.
Are those all your comments, Alderman Peterson? I'll still entertain other comments from other people on the board. Alderman Berger. A little lag in my voice. Zip.
Wow. Feel like I've been studying this for 2 years,
You have.
2 whole years. I guess when we become aldermen, you know more about rainwater and stormwater and things that we ever really thought we wanted to know even. But it's an education, and it's always not easy decision on a lot of these things, but I really can't support this motion tonight. I do want to go to public hearing. I think there is a lot yet to be said. First of all, modeling is not included, and the rainfall is not included in the flood model. That's not true. It is in the flood model. If you look at there, the flood model does include the rainwater, or the rainfall. Something was said about not fixing the flooding elsewhere. I don't know when we require developers and applicants to go fix other problems off-site. I think the big thing here is to do no harm off-site. And we've talked about that a million times. We have, the applicant has hired a professional engineering firm. City has required another professional engineering firm to be hired, and our own city engineering staff has weighed in. Now, I don't know, I've got all these files, but all these files still bring me back to, does the project meet the stormwater and floodplain ordinance requirements? Does. If I'm wrong, Paul Holzen, you're in the audience, if you would correct me if I'm incorrect. Does this proposed plan conflict with our health, safety, and welfare regulations? Not to my knowledge that I have been able to uncover, but would we as the city continue to retain CEC? I was interested in that as a third-party reviewer of this plan. I'd be interested to know if we would continue to retain them. The other thing is this a different process for Brownland than any other development that we've done in the floodplain alterations? I'd like to know that. But it's also my understanding through this whole process that the stormwater safety, both upstream and downstream, is being made better or actually done no harm through the engineering work proposed in this site. That's still my understanding. Is that still correct? I would like to have a few answers to that, if I may. Just if you need me to reiterate that.
Yeah, just one by one, we can go ahead and answer this.
Real quick. Do we still meet the stormwater and floodplain ordinances as required?
For the stormwater ordinance, yes.
Yes, okay.
To the best of our knowledge with the information that we have.
Would we still retain CEC, the third party that we hired to review plans as this goes on?
As far as the flood study goes, yes, CEC would still be involved in finalizing that, in addition to the scrutiny that they'll go through when they submit to FEMA.
Okay. And is this a different process than other developments in the floodplain alterations?
Same process.
Same process, okay. And it's my understanding that CEC and Barge has said it would I think, retain 24 million gallons of floodplain storage and reduce the downstream flow, and it would do no harm off-site. Is that still correct?
Correct.
According to the
From my knowledge, it
studies.
does improve some on-site, or significantly on-site, but it does not improve off-site. It's basically
Right.
their development.
Right, but they're not,
No harm.
no harm.
Correct.
All right. And the other thing, Clomar must be approved by FEMA before the development, and all conditions have to be approved at the site plan as well?
Correct.
On that. And then I think the last thing I had was, I'll leave the other one go. I think that's fine. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Baggett.
This is, I too spend quite a bit of time on my own fun Saturdays studying Brownland and floods, and I think I live in the flood zone, so this is important. And it's important not just for those that live in it, but those around it. And I, appreciate all the comments I've heard so far. One thing Alderman Brown mentioned, which I really want to would clarify it, because I had not heard this, but I really would like for this to be, if this is getting thrown into the dialogue, then I think I would like to know, is staff uncomfortable certifying this development with FEMA? I mean, that's a pretty pointed question, and sorry it's on the spot, but it was said that staff is uncomfortable certifying this development with FEMA. And I think that's important, and maybe it would be more respectful to us, have that discussion, but it's important, and he just brought it up tonight. So I would like to hear that.
Well, I think the answer Vernon gave you is the answer.
Which the answer was?
We don't have all of the data that was shared with you
Well,
a couple hours ago, so I think we would be hesitant to just make a blanket statement right
Sure,
now.
understood.
Because there's apparently been other information shared with the board that was not shared with staff.
Let me rephrase it then. If the development meets our ordinances as written, not Envision Franklin, but if it meets the standards of our ordinances, would staff feel comfortable signing the FEMA letter?
Well, we follow your guidance, but also I can't separate Envision Franklin from the discussion about just our ordinances.
It's fair.
They work together. And if one is in conflict, we have to think through that. And that's why we're working through some pretty significant policy issues with you as you look at this development, because it is some significant differences than what has come through previously.
But everything I just heard from Alderman Berger and Paul, it seemed that it met all of the criteria.
There is a basic kind of cut and fill standard that they met. They met the bare minimum.
Well, it's what we require.
They met the bare minimum. They met what's in the requirement.
Our requirement is not it is actually not,
It is, what I'm saying is, it's the requirement that's in the ordinance is what they met.
Which it's
They
the
didn't exceed it, they didn't do it, they met the basic requirement.
It's the most strict, one of the most strict, if not the most strict flood zone ordinances in the state.
It is your ordinance.
Oh, and I'm
Okay.
proud of it. It's great. No, I'm saying that 150%, as Alderman Peterson brought up. I think it's great to highlight the ordinance. These homes will be built, really have empathy for those in our community who are also in the floodplain. And I wanted to understand where these houses are going to be built from a height level. They're going to be built 3 foot over base flood elevation plus another 1.5 feet of the foundation. To give you some scale, I don't mind sharing this. I live on Murfreesboro Road. My house would be 8.5 feet. If my house was built to this standard, my house would be 8.5 feet above Murfreesboro Road. That's how high these new houses are going to be built. If the houses in Fieldstone Farms and Cottonwood had been built under these ordinances, we wouldn't be having the problems that we do have in Fieldstone Farms and Cottonwood right now, arguably, because they would be, and you can do the math or look at the overlays or the elevations. That's how high these houses are going to be built. So for me, that was a big deal. I think finally this is where I really still have a lot of concern, and I echo Alderman Brown's. The emergency access is imperative, and it is the most important piece of this. And it is something that I'm still, I'm longing for more confirmation, as I think many are, for something of certainty in how, and not just options, but something of certainty in how we're going to ensure the safety of our residents in the event of a flood. I'll leave that. I will not support Alderman Brown's motion to get to the public hearing, but I would encourage the applicant to find a way to provide some concrete solutions for emergency access, because the people deserve it. And even though this might feel right, just but that is a big issue for me. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
On the heels of emergency access, Patrick, and I'm not continually trying to throw wrenches at you all, but, you know, the flood problems on Hillsborough Road existed way before we started having a conversation about the sale of Brownland Farms. And the Hearth was built, and they have no other access but to come down Fulton Greer. The Brownland Farms, they have their access. And our solution that we're making a condition of approval is that they find some other emergency outlet access when the real problem is Hillsborough Road needs to be fixed. We've got elderly people who, and I'm looking at you, Vernon, it's not your fault. Sorry, I'm trying to know where to look. We've got residents that live in not only an assisted living, but a memory care facility who have the same problem. And to me, having a road built in front of Site 1 is a Band-Aid. It's not a solution. So the condition of approval that Hillsborough Road needs to be addressed by a bypass that only serves Brownland Farms, regardless of whether it's developed or not, to me, we're dropping the ball. And I know it's a TDOT route, but TDOT needs to help us fix something that we are trying to say hinders life and limb and security in emergency situations. So to me, the condition of approval, if this passes, their road impact fees should be able to go towards fixing that road, because it does support everyone in the area. I don't care if you're coming from Grassland from having a cup of coffee. If it's raining and it's flooded, you should be able to get through Mac Hatcher. So I think that's another thing that we really need to address. Putting the burden on the developer here, to me, is misplaced. It needs to be fixed. So I as well look forward to the public hearing, and but I definitely wanted to throw that into the mix because I think we're missing the mark by placing that as a responsibility of anybody that develops when we've got a whole lot of people there that need that fixed.
Alderman Potts.
Yeah, and just to follow on what Alderman Baggett and the Vice Mayor were just saying is, it is a Band-Aid, but it's a necessary Band-Aid. I think that emergency road has to be put in place, and I think you created a great illustration on the height of what the house would be. And with it being 4 feet above, and I'm actually looking at some of the information to Mr. Stuckey's comment, the information that was sent this afternoon was that no houses are being built in the 100-year floodplain, and no houses are built in the 500-year plain. And all lots are going to sit above the 500-year floodplain elevation. So I too am following what the Vice Mayor just said. I'm very interested to see how this moves forward. But public safety is paramount, and if public safety is not going to be met, if that conditional approval is not going to be met, then and I have great faith with what I think the developer and anybody would want to make sure that they're doing it right, because we cannot do any harm in that area. And Alderman Brown, I do agree with what you're saying. We don't need to do harm upstream or downstream. But I disagree with what the focus on meeting the minimum standard. The information that was shared today and the information I felt like had been shared previously, I think that it was above our minimum standard. And that, to Alderman Berger's comment, this has been going on for 2 years now. They have stepped forward and tried to make improvements along the way.
Alderman Barnhill.
Well, the question that I've asked at each one of these meetings is, does this project do harm to the people who surround this project? And the answer that I've gotten from the engineering firm they hired, the engineering firm we hired, our engineering department, whatever staff has been, is that this project causes no harm to anyone who is outside of this particular project. That means Cottonwood or what, Fieldstone Farms or whatever. This project does not increase flooding according to the models that we've seen, according to the engineering and expert testimony that we've had. It does not do harm to surrounding residents. For those of you who are here, you will be given an opportunity next time for second reading to come up to the podium there and make the same speech you made at the Planning Commission or wherever you want to go. And this is not something that is one way or the other. Bring something that shows some expert testimony or something somewhere. Just running around and saying that this is going to cause flooding and this is going to cause flooding. We're getting, I acknowledge that we're probably getting more rainfall than we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I acknowledge that. I'm not saying that we're not getting that. What I am saying is it would be not very bright on our part to think that they're the people who are causing the additional rainfall. They're not. I don't think their project will adversely affect any house unless it's something somewhere, somebody shows something other than what we've been presented. Now, if the experts are wrong, if the studies are wrong, if our engineering department is wrong, then we're all wrong. But I'm gonna vote against what Alderman Brown has proposed. I want to see you have a chance to come back before us and make your presentation. And I would suggest, as many of you that want to, the mayor's going to give you the amount of time that you will need and make your presentation to us. There may be something that somewhere along the way that convinces us one way or the other. And I really was a little bit questioning whether or not Envision Franklin and our ordinances conflict, and we have to work it out. I would suggest that we work it out through our ordinances, not Envision Franklin, because Envision Franklin has never been adopted by the board. So whatever ordinance we go by is what guides what we do here. So I won't vote to support that motion that Alderman Brown made.
Alderman Peterson wanted to make a follow-up comment, and I'll allow that now.
Before someone else goes. But now, is there someone who hasn't spoken yet? First of all, let me say, whenever we are voting on rezoning anything, there are not any requirements for a rezoning. There may be some things that are against a rezoning, but there are not, it's not like, and as a person who's been on the Planning Commission for decades, if something fits everything in the zoning ordinance, then as a planning commissioner, you have to approve it unless you can give a reason why it does not fit the ordinance. But on rezoning, that is not the case. There are no just requirements for that something has to fit to be rezoned. Rezoning is a matter that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen does. It really doesn't have anything to do with Envision Franklin. I mean, ideally, it would fit. Envision Franklin is a land use plan, and people are right in saying it is only passed by the Planning Commission. But what I'm saying is that every piece of land may not be appropriate for development. And the other thing is, it's been said, when Fieldstone Farms was developed, I was on the Planning Commission, and I have said, I do not want anything built in the floodplain. There was not a single lot in Fieldstone Farms whenever that was voted in, And when the development was approved, that was in the floodplain. Now, the floodplain at that time was what FEMA said it was. Since then, FEMA has revised their maps and says that there are what, 200 lots in Fieldstone that they recognize now are a part of what they consider to be the floodplain? That they didn't say 20 whatever years ago. So, just because something is not in the floodplain right now doesn't mean that years from now, and because FEMA's getting ready to revise the maps right now in Williamson County. Not that I know it has anything to do with this particular area, but I'm just saying that when something like Rebel Meadows was built, at that time, somebody wanted to get their land developed. They got it done. And now in Rebel Meadows, you know, there are a whole lot of houses that had to be torn down. And the same thing is true in Harpeth Meadows. That was another one that was built. You know, but now that it's floodplain, you know, whether it was then or not, I don't know, because there were a lot of people who owned property who wanted to get it developed. And a lot of times, the people that were on the board of mayor and aldermen said, sure. So I want to say to you, I want to learn more about this, and whenever I saw this thing that apparently was sent to us by the development team saying that they had to compensate for every foot or every, I don't know, I'm going to say, I think they said cubic yards of water, but I'm just going to say for every square foot of soil that you dig up, that you want to use, for every foot of soil that you want to use to build up the land that you have to take out 1.5 square feet of there. And so, I mean, that's what that says, 1.5 for every one. So that means that you have to take out 1.5 times as much as you're going to need to build up property to get it so that it is out of the floodplain there.
Real quick.
I want to make sure everybody's had an opportunity to speak that wants to speak. And so I'll
Real
allow
quick.
you to
I just have one.
readdress it.
I think we've had two professional companies, and of course our engineering department as well, but what year was Fieldstone built? 30 years ago?
More.
More than 30 years ago. So I would say that we've come a long way in our technology.
Mid to late 80s.
Okay, so we've come a long way in our technology, better modeling, much, much, much more and heavy, robust regulations than we ever had before.
Same
So
regulations,
I would say that,
FEMA or not.
I would say that we're hopefully not doing the same things we did 30 years ago. Hopefully, we have improved greatly, we have better regulations, we have incredible technology to 3D modeling of our river, a lot of different things that I could add on, but, and then I don't know why if we hire companies and the applicant hires a company, that we don't use their expertise. What good is it if we don't use those expertise? So I would have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that. Why do we bother if we're not going to use those expertise? But the real point I want to make is I totally agree with Vice Mayor Blanton that we have to fix that road. You made an excellent point. Thank you very much, because it was well said. And they could go through Site 1, that's a Band-Aid, that's a fix. They could go behind the bank and get out to the road. and do something there. But I think raising Hillsborough Road, and I think partnering with the city to do so, because it's not just their problem, it's the city's problem, and it has to do with all the other people in the assisted living. And there's a problem on the other side of the road of people trying to get out. So I would say that we don't need a Band-Aid, we need to work, and if this does go through, I really think the city has to work with this developer so we can partner to fix that road with TDOT, because we have a responsibility, as the Vice Mayor said, to these other people. I think that's very critical. Thank you.
Alderman Barnhill, you got a follow-up?
Yeah, so would we advocate a certain number, certain limit on the amount of building if it were approved? And only that amount could be built until Hillsborough Road was improved? We've done it elsewhere.
I like
so
that.
That's right.
They got a number somewhere sometime.
Well, I don't think we need to be negotiating
I'm not
some
negotiating
number.
right now. I'm just
Well, you're
making a
suggesting a
suggestion.
negotiation,
That's not
so.
negotiation. That's a suggestion.
Are you ready to vote on the motion, which was to deny the rezoning? Alderman Barnhill, how do you vote?
No.
Vice Mayor Blanton?
No.
Alderman Hanson?
No.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Alderman Berger?
No.
Alderman Brown?
Yes.
Alderman Potts?
No.
And Alderman Baggett?
No.
The motion fails 6-2. Is there any other motions in this regard?
Do we have to have an affirmative?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I move for approval of the item to move it to a public hearing.
Second.
Appropriate motion, second. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Everybody understand? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
No.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
No.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes 6-2. Item number 6, consideration resolution 2022-22. A resolution authorizing an engagement of Weatherproofing Technologies, Inc. for improvements to the sanitation facility transfer station in the amount of $515,680.38. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 7, Resolution 2021-184, resolution to approve the new City Hall master plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Potts. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Any discussion? Go ahead, Alderman Barnhill.
I want to make sure that I understand the resolution to approve the new City Hall master plan. We sat here 2 weeks ago and said we wanted to look at an additional 30,000 square feet or whatever it was to make sure it was retail or whatever. I personally think that we're ahead of the curve on this right here to understand exactly what we want to get out of this, because the City Hall master plan to me would be the size and scope of the building itself. Well, that's what I would interpret.
It's my understanding that what we're voting on is what we've already completed, and that we're approving that basically bubble diagram of the City Hall and potential spaces. It's not what you're speaking of, Alderman Barnhill. It's what
Well,
we've already done.
there was a whole lot of information that's attached to that item right there.
If
that
staff
go-
would
that
clarify that
goes
then.
forward.
Yeah, you've gone through a year-long master planning process. The master plan before you is the outcome of that. The discussion we had over the last couple meetings relates to what goes in the schematic design process. That's what we're working towards now. You've done a specific process to devise a master plan with input from the public, from the city team, from the design team, that process has really been completed, and that's this end result. You've asked us to look at some other alternatives to add to that at the design stage, and that certainly moves forward. But we've really completed an element of the process, and this just memorializes that. Vernon may want to add to that.
No, thank you, Eric, and that's exactly it. The consultant, and we've completed phase one, which was that preliminary master plan. As we go forward into the schematic design, and we do hope to bring a professional services agreement for that schematic design, which includes the economic consultant that we'll plan to bring to you in a couple months when it's completed. But it will allow us to proceed with updating the programming document. And then, as we get into the schematic design, your guidance on what we will actually be building as far as the footprint will be where the schematic design, and prior to your approval of that schematic design, which would be about 14 to 15 months, once we start on it, that's where you'll see you make the hard, fast decision.
So all this does right here is just okay the $800,000 that we okayed several months ago, to be exact, probably last year, year before last, just okays the spending of that $800,000 that has already been spent.
No, you're accepting the plan that expenditure produced.
The 96-page booklet.
Yeah, the master plan, yeah.
We're not limiting ourselves
Right.
on the size of the structure at this point.
No.
You still are making that decision based on what Vernon just walked you through. Yeah.
If I may, Mayor and Alderman, all of that is a result of engaging stakeholders, and there are a lot of illustrations, and there are some work that has been done with staff about adjacencies, how a building will function. And as we get into the schematic design, now we'll hone in a little bit more clear, but at least our consultant team, which includes mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, the architects, security folks, will use that document to help hone us further into a schematic design that'll eventually lead to construction drawings. But you get to approve that first. It's almost like you're looking to buy a house, you go to the interior decorator and they show you a lot of things for your house, and then eventually you're going to pick those out. Well, we're not to the point of picking them out yet, because you're still going to provide us guidance on the size of the building we're going to build and whether we're going to have leasable space.
So when does the funding go in place for that?
What I had mentioned for the schematic design, which would be about $1.4 million, we hope to bring a professional services agreement back to you in 2 weeks for approval, so we can proceed with the economic consultants work and just begin some initial work on updating the programming document, because whether we proceed with option 3, which is the 78.5 square foot building, or we can build the whole building as planned with leasable space, we know that we're going to have initially a reduced footprint to work in, and we can do some of that work with our team. So in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, you'll be asking for $1.4 million.
Yes.
I'll be prepared.
With as Vernon described, sort of an initial phase, and then you'll give us guidance on what you would like to have designed, and then it would continue on. It's not you'll have a decision point to make after that initial work has been done.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Ma'am.
No, go ahead, please.
If we, because I've heard lots of about the stairwell and this and that, all of that is the next phase. And it won't be, there's things about the mass and this and that I didn't care for necessarily in the master plan, but that can all we can address that in the next phase, right?
Yes, but
I mean, we're not going to be sitting and you say your master plan says this, we can't go that direction.
Once we have the economic consultants work and presented it to you, and you give us guidance on the size of the building. Then we're going to start getting into more of the schematic design. And that scope of services requires us to come back to you at least 4 times. And to the Historic Zoning Commission, because they're the decision-making on the exterior. So that's, the first key point is approval of the professional services agreement that Alderman Barnhill is looking forward to in a couple weeks. But also that we won't go any further until we get direction from you after the economic consultant has come and shared their findings.
So we said that would be at least 2 months out, didn't we?
Actually, it's probably closer to 3 at this
3.
point, where we are today.
So in two weeks, make sure I'm following all this, 2 weeks, you're gonna ask for $1.4 million. Then it goes on hold for 3 months while we're waiting for the individual to come back and say whether or not it's feasible to do some kind of private development with the city hall.
Not necessarily, we're going to update the programming document to look at a smaller footprint.
Yeah, it
Yes.
wouldn't be accurate to say it goes on hold.
this one
It
has-
doesn't all go on hold
You're doing
because the
initial work.
consultant's doing their work.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
all right.
And the benefit of that, if I may, is that if you, whatever the decision is on the size of building to go through, the consultant can keep working fluidly, even if we have to amend the professional services agreement. Because if we go to a larger footprint, it's going to be more fees, but we can keep working while we're working on redrafting an amendment to bring back to you, and we don't lose a couple months or so. Hopefully that helps.
Alderman Berger.
Okay, I had no problem voting on this because I figured this was the massive overall look at the plan and all these little things would come into place, but there was one part I did have a question on, and it says at the very end, the last whereas in January 2022, the staff recommended phasing for a partial building, the word partial is in here, and full subgrade parking. So does that wording in here, partial, limit us in any way, shape, or form? I wouldn't think it would.
No.
I just
Not
wanted,
at all.
I just wanted that clarified.
Not at all. And when our internal team here looked at the cost implications, we wanted to provide a fiscally responsible recommendation, knowing that you would give us direction, which you have. And we've engaged what we feel is a very prominent economic consultant to help us in a historic district like Franklin look critically at the opportunities for leasable space.
Yeah, I think that's very important, extremely important. All right, thank you.
Ready to vote?
Sure.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
And Alderman Barnhill.
And I'm gonna vote no. I look forward to 2 weeks. Yes, I wanna vote yes. I look forward to 2 weeks. I'll save my no till then. I don't wanna get too many of them built up.
Okay, it passes unanimously then. Item 8 is Resolution 2022-21, a resolution authorizing the pre-ordering of consumer vehicles and equipment prior to the commencement of the new fiscal year. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 9, consideration of City of Franklin Contract 2022-0005, interlocal cooperation and mutual aid agreement for the Nashville Fire Department, TN, TF2, US, and R Swiftwater Rescue Team.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
We're gonna need that
Seconded,
Swiftwater
Alderman.
team, I second.
Thank you.
Yep, we've been waiting.
That took my breath, but we have appropriate motion and a second. Are you ready to vote? Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
And Alderman Barnhill.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yes, passes unanimously. Next is consideration of reappointment of Ethel Scruggs to the Franklin Housing Authority. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Hanson. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Hanson?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Alderman Berger?
Yes.
Alderman Brown?
Yes.
Alderman Potts?
Yes.
Alderman Baggett?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. I need a motion to go into executive
So
session.
moved.
Thank you, Alderman
Second.
Berger. Second by the Vice Mayor. Do I have to have a roll call vote? Okay.
Roll call.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We are now in executive session.
use it.
What happened to the crowd? Even the press left.
Well, are there any matters to be considered from executive session?
No, sir,
No,
there's
sir.
not. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Appropriate motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night.
I gotta sign out on this, don't we?